This presentation is going to hopefully help alleviate any issues we have with writing correct sentences. So this is going to be the first tutorial in a series of tutorials that's going to help make us better writers. So this first one is sentences and how to write them correctly for good. First piece. So what is a sentence? A sentence, by definition, is a group of words containing a subject and a predicate, or a verb, that expresses a single idea. Pretty simple examples. Salida Middle School is home to the Spartans. Pretty simple, right? Not for everyone. One of the biggest issues we see are sentence fragments. The sentence fragment is an incomplete thought. It is usually written as a piece of a sentence, missing either a subject or a predicate. Example, after reading Touching Spirit Bear, because we are on Thanksgiving break. Neither of those would be considered a sentence. Both of them would be considered fragments because they are dependent clauses. We'll get into that in a minute. How to fix sentence fragments. To fix them, we need to figure out what's missing and then add it to the fragment. So examples, after reading Touching Spirit Bear, I had a new appreciation for restorative justice practices. Notice how we add a comma after bear and then simply add the independent clause, I had a new appreciation for restorative justice practices. The second one, I was able to run a lot more because we were on Thanksgiving break. Notice how I added that first independent clause, I was able to run a lot more. That turned that sentence fragment into a complete sentence. Notice again how simple that is. We just need to pay attention. We need to reread what we write. Next issue is a run-on sentence. You see me put this comment on a lot of your work. A run-on sentence does just that. It keeps going and going and going and going. Typically, it has several subjects and or predicates. They're fairly easy to spot. Examples. After reading Touching Spirit Bear, I had a new appreciation for restorative justice practices, and I think that all criminals should have a chance to heal and not go to jail because we learned that if you go to jail angry, you come out angry. That is almost exactly what I've seen many of you write. Second example, I was able to run more because it was Thanksgiving break and it felt great to get out every day. I haven't been able to run as much with it getting dark so early. Again, that had several subjects and several predicates or verbs. Oftentimes, again, it's as simple as rereading. We just need to double check what we're writing to catch those errors. How to fix them? First, we need to identify where one sentence ends and the next one begins. Once we do that, there are a couple different ways to write them correctly. First example. After reading Touching Spirit Bear, I had a new appreciation for restorative justice practices, comma, and I think that all criminals should have a chance to heal and not go to jail, period. We learned that if you go to jail angry, you come out angry. Notice the comma after practices and the conjunction and. I turned that into a compound sentence. Two sentences joined by a comma and a conjunction. For the last one, I simply made it its own sentence. Period after jail, got rid of because, and started with a capital W. We learned that if you go to jail angry, you come out angry, period. So I turned that run-on into two sentences, one of them a compound. The second example, I was able to run more because it was Thanksgiving break, semicolon. Semicolon is a great tool to use. It combines sentences into a compound sentence, but we do not use a conjunction. Notice how I deleted the word and. Semicolon, it felt great to get out every day. The semicolon combines two independent clauses. Period, I haven't been able to run as much with it getting dark so early. So I turned that again into two sentences, one of them a compound sentence. To fix run-ons, again, we need to reread what we write. One of the best ways, read it out loud. Read it to yourself so that you can actually hear it and so that you actually run out of breath when you're saying it. The third error that we see is a comma splice. To splice something is to combine things together. A comma splice is similar to a run-on. It's when you simply use a comma incorrectly to join two or more sentences or independent clauses. Examples: this week is Thanksgiving, comma, we're going to have a quiet dinner with my family. I'm hoping the Bills win this weekend, comma, they need to stay in first place in the division. Cross-country season was very successful, comma, both teams won their division. All three of those sentences are incorrectly written. All three of them are comma splices. Commas are used incorrectly because they don't have conjunctions after them. Again, to fix, fixing them is similar to fixing run-ons. The first example, this week is Thanksgiving, semicolon. We're going to have a quiet dinner with my family. Because there's no conjunction, the semicolon makes it correct. Second way, I'm hoping the Bills win this weekend, period. Capital T. They need to stay in first place in the division. We change the comma to a period and capitalize the T. Now we have two different independent clauses. Third example, cross-country season was very successful because both teams won their division. We delete the comma and add the word because. That changes it into a dependent clause. We don't need any punctuation, and it is a correctly written, complex sentence. We'll get into types of sentences in a future video. So again, all three of those were comma splices. Now all three of them are correct. Notice how none of them has a comma in there. Now, really quickly, the difference between a dependent and an independent clause. An independent clause is another name for a sentence. An independent clause can stand on its own. A dependent clause, think of the word dependent. It depends on something else. A dependent clause is a group of words with a subject and a predicate, but it cannot stand on its own. These cannot be sentences on their own. They must be combined with independent clauses to be considered correct. Again, examples of dependent clauses: after reading Touching Spirit Bear, because it was Thanksgiving break. Again, those are considered dependent clauses even though they have verbs and subjects because they are not complete thoughts. Now, as we get into more writing this year, we really need to make sure we know how to use sentences. We'll get into style again in a future video. If you have questions, as always, do not ever hesitate to ask.